Good morning, everyone. For our last day, on Friday, we have still 3 debates. So we are, let's say, we don't have that much speakers, but still we have a strict time schedule. So the sitting is open, and the first item of business this morning is debate on the report titled Artificial Intelligence and Migration. This is the document 16240. Presented by Mr. Peter Honkonen on behalf of the Committee on Migration, Refugees and Misplaced Persons. I remind members that now the speaking time limit is 2 minutes, and I will be quite strict on that. And in order to finish at 10:45, because then we have to start the next one, we will enter the list of speakers around 10:35, so to allow the time also for the reply and for the vote. So now I give the floor to Mr. Honkonen as rapporteur. You have 7 minutes now, and at the end you have also 3 minutes. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President, honourable members of the Assembly, dear colleagues. We gather today at a defining moment, a moment that will shape not just how we govern migration, but how we govern ourselves, our values, and the technologies that are changing our societies at a staggering pace. Artificial intelligence is no longer a distant prospect. It is already embedded in our asylum systems, our borders, our visa screening, and our public services. AI influences decisions about who may enter, who must wait, and who may stay. That is why this resolution is so important. It is not simply about technological efficiency, even though it is a fact that AI may facilitate and intensify processes. This resolution is a call for political leadership. It is a roadmap for ensuring that AI respects human rights, protects dignity, and serves justice across the entire migration journey. The draft resolution before you outlines in detail what is at stake and what must be done. It calls for human oversight in all AI systems, particularly those used to assess asylum claims or visa eligibility. It calls for impact assessments to be conducted before any AI system is deployed in migration contexts. Assessments that evaluate risks to privacy, fairness and non-discrimination using the Council of Europe's HUD methodology. It calls for great caution with regard to emotion recognition and automated lie detection tools. It demands strong safeguards on data protection, especially for biometric and sensitive personal data. The resolution also addresses the entire continuum of migration. In pre-departure stages, it proposes ethical use of chatbots to inform migrants of their rights, AI-supported visa systems that do not discriminate, and labour matching tools that prevent exploitation. In transit, it opposes indiscriminate surveillance and supports AI tools for search and rescue, a matter of life and death for those crossing the Mediterranean Sea or other dangerous routes. Upon arrival, it urges member states to preserve the human element in asylum adjudication, ensure transparency in how AI systems are used, and translate decisions into plain, accessible language. During stay and integration, it supports inclusive digital services, language tools co-designed with migrant communities, and predictive analytics to promote social cohesion and prevent exclusion. In return and reintegration, It calls for voluntary informed return processes supported by AI. Colleagues, this is not just about abstract principles. These are concrete, actionable steps to make sure Europe remains the global standard bearer for the ethical governance of AI, especially where human vulnerability is greatest. And that brings me to the accompanying draft recommendation, which gives these commitments additional political weight. It calls on the Committee of Ministers to adopt a formal recommendation and a code of good practice on AI and migration, a living framework that translates legal principles into practical guidance for national authorities, border agencies, asylum offices, and service providers, in line with the Council of Europe Framework Convention on AI and Human Rights, Democracy and Rule of Law. It recommends targeted training for ombudsman institutions and equality bodies, so they are equipped to respond to AI-related complaints and right violations. It calls for deepened cooperation with key EU and UN bodies, Frontex, EU LISA, UNHCR, IOM, to ensure that the use of AI in migration management is not fragmented or inconsistent, but coordinated and rights-based. We are reaffirming our commitments to a Europe where technology is shaped by rights and not the other way around. We are declaring that efficiency must never come at the expense of equality, that innovation must never silence the voices of the most vulnerable. I urge you, dear colleagues, let this Assembly lead. Let us adopt this resolution and recommendation not as an afterthought, but as a beacon of a responsible, value-based governance looks like in the digital age. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I give the floor to, first of all, on behalf of the political groups, Mr. Stefan Steinach. Stefan, you have 2 minutes.
Ja, ich möchte dem Berichterstatter im Namen meiner Fraktion sehr gratulieren zu diesem ausgewogenen und auch zu dieser mahnenden Resolution, die im Wesentlichen alle wichtigen Fragen aufwirft und auch sagt, dass man KI einsetzen kann, aber man muss aufpassen, dass sie nicht durch Algorithmen verhindert, dass Menschen das Land betreten dürfen, Grenzen überschreiten dürfen, beziehungsweise dass Arbeits- und Aufenthaltsgenehmigungen nicht zustande kommen. Ich glaube, das ist ganz wichtig, und dass sie vor allem die Menschenrechte, Demokratie und Rechtsstaatlichkeit erfolgen und nicht zu algorithmischen Verzerrungen kommen. Es ist wichtig, dass da keine Mittel wie Glaubwürdigkeitsbewertung, Emotionserkennung, Risikoprofile oder Staatshörigkeit oder ethnische Zugehörigkeit gibt. Wo KI tatsächlich einen Vorteil haben kann, ist bei der Migrationssteuerung. Da müssen es tatsächlich aber zu Effizienzgewinnen kommen, strenger Schutz der Menschenrechte in allen Phasen und mit der Migration. Außerdem, da ja aufgrund des dramatischen Klimawandels immer mehr Umweltflüchtlinge kommen, kann die KI genau hier bei den Vorhersagen für klimabedingte Migration sozioökonomische Daten analysieren und liefern und ermöglicht eine humanitäre Planung, so wie wir das ja schon im Bericht Klima und Migration gemacht haben. Ich unterstütze voll den Vorschlag des Berichterstatters, dass es ein Übereinkommen aller Staaten hinsichtlich dieses Themas gibt. Und das ist in der Entwurf ein Rahmenübereinkommen des Europarats über künstliche Intelligenz, Menschenrechte, Demokratie und Rechtsstaatlichkeit. Das ist sehr, sehr
Danke, Stefan.
zu haben. Danke sehr.
Danke. The next speaker will be then on behalf of the EPP, Mrs. Voxy. You have 2 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Artificial intelligence has already changed our world, the way how we live, how we learn, work, do business, and how we educate our children as well. It is a remarkable achievement, yet its full impact on labor market, on the gender pay gap, on equality still needs to carefully study and evidence. Of course, I support the use of AI, but we must be prudent where rights are at stake. In my own country, a so-called AI minister was introduced, raising constitutional and practical questions. People rightly are asking who programs it, who is accountable tomorrow, the same network that enables the high-level corruption. Beyond the glossy headlines, the core problems are transparency and accountability. At its core, the Assembly exists to defend human rights. When AI enters migration management, the stakes for those rights might rise sharply. As someone from a country, Albania, with millions of immigrants, I know the human face behind the statistics. We might be very, very careful. AI systems used for asylum and border decisions are or might be at a high risk. Opaque algorithm, weak oversight, the limited human control. Bias is not theoretical. Facial recognition, biometric matching, dialect analysis too often misidentify women, minorities, Roma, and vulnerable groups. We need guidelines that put people first. Human oversight in every decision. Prior human rights impact assessment, mandatory bias audits, independent oversight. Inclusion matters too. If AI tools replace paper forms but are not multilingual, accessible offline, let us work with UNHCR, IOM, and European partners to establish a code of good practice on AI migration and ensure our member states align with Council of Europe new AI framework. Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask the speakers that we keep strictly on the 2 minutes, because I want to have everyone on the floor, which is on the list, and if you are not strict, then we are going out of our time schedule. I go now to Mr. Gevorgian on behalf of the ECPA. 2 minutes.
Dear colleagues, artificial intelligence cannot become a black box deciding human destinies, specifically in migration and asylum procedures. Digital decisions in such sensitive matters must always be subject to strict human review. We often talk about external interference. However, today we are in a situation of a new, voluntary form of digital dependency. According to AI gurus, the more we rely on AI advice, the more data it collects, the smarter it becomes, and I would add, the greater its influence over our choices. This means that the weakening of our national institutions in making sovereign decisions is growing, not only of foreign pressure, but also of our own dependence on technology. Technology is a tool and should serve people, not rule over them. We must not allow an automated system to decide human destinies without accountability to any court or any parliament. The stakes of immigration are extremely high. An algorithm error can cost a person their life or send them back to persecution. This is not a risk we can trust to a machine. That is, we need a careful and gradual approach with pilot projects, feedback mechanisms, and strict monitoring instead of hasty automation. At the same time, AI can and should be used to help develop sound and effective migration policy in our countries and to evaluate their results. The key factor remains human responsibility, the ability to formulate the right question and critically evaluate the answers. If we want to avoid the negativism of new digital addiction, we need to invest not only in technology, but also in the competencies of users. Otherwise, we risk outsourcing judgment and responsibilities to machine. AI can assist us, but it must never replace human responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I go to Mrs. Puljak on behalf of the ALDE. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, on behalf of ALDE Group, I would like to stress the importance of balanced approach to the development and use of artificial intelligence in migration management. Artificial intelligence is already transforming many aspects of migration policy. It can make visa and asylum procedures more efficient, reduce administrative delays, and provide migrants and refugees with access to real-time multilingual information. AI can also help detect exploitation in labor migration, forecast climate-driven displacement, and support search and rescue operations at sea, saving lives and offering safer routes for people on the move. In integration, AI-powered tools can assist with language learning, job matching, and access the services, helping migrants contribute more quickly and fully to their host societies. But at the same time, we must be very clear. These opportunities come with serious risks. AI systems that are not properly designed or regulated can reinforce bias, discriminate against vulnerable groups, and undermine the right to asylum. Automated credibility assessments, emotion recognition, or risk profiling based on nationality or ethnicity are not scientifically reliable and must be prohibited. Human oversight is crucial. AI should support, not replace, human decision-making when people's futures and fundamental rights are at stake. All systems must undergo human rights impact assessments, be transparent, independently monitored, and subject to legal redress. Our group believes this resolution makes an important contribution and should be supported. At the same time, I will also propose an amendment to underline more clearly the positive side of artificial intelligence, its potential to strengthen humanitarian protection, accelerate integration, and foster innovation, while still respecting human dignity and rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I go to Mr. Fernandez on behalf of the UL Group. You have 2 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le débat qui nous occupe à l'instant porte donc sur les applications déjà effectives ou potentielles de l'intelligence artificielle dans le domaine des migrations. Mon groupe de la gauche unitaire européenne remercie et félicite le rapporteur pour son travail qui permet de rendre notre Assemblée attentive aux opportunités, mais sans doute avant tout aux dangers et donc aux grandes précautions que nos États membres se doivent de prendre en la matière afin de respecter les droits humains que nous sommes chargés de défendre ici. Notre groupe prône une approche résolument humaine de l'accompagnement des personnes en situation de migration. Derrière le concept d'intelligence artificielle se cachent des réalités profondément politiques. La conception des algorithmes utilisés est imprégnée de décisions politiques, de choix, de préférences, d'orientation dans l'entraînement des modèles. Autrement dit, une intelligence artificielle produite dans un État autoritaire n'a rien de commun avec celle développée dans un État qui serait progressiste. Nous approuvons l'ensemble des garanties proposées par le rapporteur et formulons le vœu qu'elles puissent suffire à empêcher au sein des États membres des atteintes aux droits et aux libertés en cas d'usage de l'IA. En effet, il serait redoutable de penser qu'on puisse gérer des personnes migrantes comme on gère des données. Il serait insensé de fournir à une intelligence artificielle le traitement de situations administratives individuelles, même au nom de la rapidité. Qui pourrait imaginer des jugements civils ou administratifs rendus par une machine ? Derrière les chiffres et les données, il y a des vies humaines, il y a des parcours singuliers qui exigent une approche spécifique, une véritable personnalisation des procédures. Comme nous le rappelle le philosophe Emmanuel Levinas, en humanité, c'est la rencontre avec le visage d'autrui qui est au cœur de la relation éthique. Quelle place alors pour une intelligence artificielle purement numérique et dénuée de visage ? Nous pensons que l'amélioration de l'accueil et du traitement des personnes migrantes passe avant tout par la mise en place de voies de migration sûres, ainsi qu'une augmentation conséquente des moyens humains pour accueillir, accompagner, orienter et soutenir dignement et dans le respect des droits humains.
Merci.
Je vous remercie.
Merci. Maintenant, now we will go to the speakers list. Mr. Reader, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. And can I just say this report is fantastic, really well timed. It's a principled framework for how we deal with what is a real challenge that many governments have now. How do we deploy AI safely in the delivery of public services? And I really like the core message. AI must support. It must be a tool that we use to help decision-making, not replace the human in the loop. We know criminals that profit from illegal migration, profit from human suffering, are using AI to try and beat the system. And so governments able to grab hold of these tools to protect people and to make sure we have fair immigration is absolutely critical. I want to pick up two key recommendations. First of all, human oversight, absolutely critical, and I thank the rapporteur for making such a big emphasis on this. AI must assist, but there must always be a human making that final decision. And secondly, transparency and redress. I do agree with the point that applicants must understand how AI has been used in the application of their asylum claim and have the ability to challenge decisions where they believe it's been used unfairly. We have to make sure there is redress and the rule of law maintained. But there are risks here, you know, as has been picked up, I think, one of my colleagues, AI systems have a risk of introducing bias, have a risk of introducing opacity in decision-making and also discrimination. We must make sure, therefore, that we have clear policy guide rails, such as this report, which guide our implementation. In the UK, we're trying to grab hold of this, and the government launched in January the AI Opportunities Action Plan, which has been adopted by organisations, departments like the Home Office. We see the application through asylum case summary tools, which have improved the efficiency of our department by 32% in that process, and also tools to look at facial age estimation for asylum cases. So overall, I fully support this report. I think it's a fantastic step forward, and it's really positive to see the Council looking at a really emerging critical issue for our governments.
Thank you. Then I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Mullen. He's not here. Then we go to the following one. Ms. Timblom. Please, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Rapporteur, Mr. Honkonen. Migration remains one of the greatest challenges facing Europe. Our systems are overloaded, our societies under strain, and too often abuse of asylum procedures undermines public trust. To regain control, we must modernize our tools. AI offers precisely that possibility. AI can strengthen border management by detecting forged documents, tracking irregular crossings, and identifying criminal networks behind smuggling and trafficking. It can process vast amounts of data faster than any human, allowing us to distinguish genuine claims from fraudulent ones with far greater efficiency. This means fewer loopholes, fewer delays, and less room for abuse. By automating repetitive administrative work, AI ensures that our limited human resources focus where they matter most, on enforcement, investigation, and upholding the rule of law. It can also support labor market checks, ensuring that migration aligns with the needs of our economies, not the other way around. Crucially, AI allows us to apply the law consistently and objectively, reducing the risk of manipulation and restoring credibility to our migration policies. With strict safeguards in place, it can give us both stronger control and greater clarity. Europe cannot afford to remain stuck with outdated processes while irregular migration continues to rise. AI is not a threat to our sovereignty. It is a tool to defend it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Then I call Mr. Toroczkai. He's not here. Okay, then we go to the following one. Mr. Calionchis de la Fuente. Please, you have 2 minutes. 2 minutos. You have to insert your card.
Honorable Asamblea, la migración es un fenómeno global que ha marcado la historia de la humanidad, que afecta a millones de personas en el mundo. La protección de los derechos humanos de los migrantes debe ser un reto importante. Mi país, México, enfrenta retos específicos como país de tránsito y destino para millones de migrantes, lo cual representa una gran problemática dentro y fuera de nuestro país. Y no se trata únicamente de los derechos humanos, sino también de una contribución a un desarrollo económico más inclusivo y sostenible y una garantía para que la migración no continúe siendo un problema grave como lo es actualmente a nivel global. La política migratoria en México se basa en la defensa de los derechos de los migrantes y la promoción de desarrollo económico desde una perspectiva humanitaria, implementando estrategias para abordar las causas estructurales de la migración que enfatiza el respeto al Estado de Derecho y los derechos humanos de los migrantes. ¿Y cómo puede lograrse? A través de una estrategia en cada país, sobre todo en los que más personas emigran, como en el caso de México, en donde logramos que las personas tengan acceso a mejores oportunidades laborales y un mejor salario y se reduzca la desigualdad. Mejor educación, no violencia y mayor seguridad y con mejores condiciones de vida. De verdad que el tema de inseguridad en el mundo es grave y eso es provocado en gran medida que millones de personas quieran salir de su país. En lo que respecta a la importancia de la implementación de la inteligencia artificial en el tema migratorio, lo considero muy relevante, ya que utiliza para garantizar la seguridad de los migrantes, así como en el ámbito de la defensa de los derechos humanos, siendo una herramienta valiosa para la gestión migratoria, ofreciendo soluciones que agilicen procesos administrativos a través de servicios más eficientes con asistentes virtuales. En conclusión, considero que la migración es un fenómeno complejo que requiere políticas efectivas y bien gestionadas para abordar sus desafíos y maximizar sus beneficios. A medida que el mundo enfrenta cambios demográficos, económicos y sociales, por ello considero crucial atender la migración de manera que se protejan los derechos.
Gracias, por favor.
Migrantes. Gracias.
Gracias. And then we go to our last speaker, Mr. Chingi. You have the floor. 2 minutes, please.
Dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, I would like to congratulate the reporter for his great work that explores the human rights challenges brought by the use of AI in migration management. Most pressing concern is the AI's potential for directly or indirectly causing discrimination. Data and algorithm could be flawed, incomplete, or biased. Thus, AI systems in the migration management bear the risk of discrimination, wrongful detention, and misidentification. Flawed evaluation has also consequences for refugees and asylum seekers. AI can easily reduce their circumstances to a set of parameters or algorithms, overlooking the human dignity that should be at the core of all migration decisions. As elaborated successfully in the report, in order to avoid human rights violations, human oversight measures and independent review are conducive for safeguarding the human dignity. In this context, member states cannot use AI as a pretext to circumvent their human rights obligations in relation to migrants and refugees. Therefore, member states should not view AI as a tool to control migration and accelerate asylum procedures at the expense of migrants' rights. Furthermore, AI tools could be used for the good of migrants and refugees. Migrants go missing during journeys due to their restrictive migration policies and pushbacks. AI tools must be employed to relocate and save those migrants. Finally, I hope that this report, along with other Council of Europe initiatives, would help make AI tools human rights compliant. Thank you.
Thank you. So that makes that we can conclude the list of speakers, and then I call the rapporteur, Mr. Honkonen, to reply. You have maximum 3 minutes. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, dear colleagues, for the very constructive and interesting discussion about this report. And I must say that I'm very happy to hear that the human oversight was present in every speech I heard during this debate. What I most liked in working with this subject and with this report was that often in this hemicycle we discuss on human rights in theory, in theoretical situations. But in this report, I got the chance to focus on human rights much more in practice than it usually is. And as you can see, here is a practical tool, many practical tools presented by our good experts of the Council of Europe and other experts throughout Europe. We have now here, we have legal tools to use AI, and we have political strategies, we have institutional structures which are essential on using AI in public administration in every member country, in every member state, with the human oversight and with the human rights positive way. And there were many good points you raised up in your speeches. But what I especially want to highlight is that when we talk about technology, like we now talk about artificial intelligence, it is often seen, we often see all the threats. Of course, there is threats, and we have to handle the threats, but there is also positive aspects, and which can even protect human rights better than without the technological tools. So, at the end, we have now the situation, we are at the point where we can lead this development. AI is coming, AI already exists in these asylum processes in many member countries in Europe. But the point is that if we want to guide it, if we want to change the future, where we use AI in a human rights positive way, we can do it, but we have to do it now. Before it is too late. At the end, I want to use a saying in Finnish language where we say that fire isn't a good lord, but fire is a good servant. So I would say that AI isn't a good lord for us, but it's a good servant, and we must use it in a human rights positive way, and keep the human in the loop. Thank you.
Thank you. And does the chairperson of the committee wish to speak? Yes, you have maximum 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank Rapporteur and Secretariat for an amazing job done. It's clear that artificial intelligence is absolutely new, unique instrument. And as any instrument, you know, the knife in hands of a surgeon will save the life. The knife in the hands of a criminal will kill. So it's absolutely not about an instrument, but about how we use it. And it's time now to prepare for future, which is already knocking at our doors. And that's why I think such a report is very important. And we need to look at the influence of artificial intelligence on all spheres of our life, including such important topic as migration and asylum. And I just want to stress once again that this resolution and recommendation are vital. The draft resolution and draft recommendation call for clear prohibitions on unlawful AI practices, mandatory human rights impact assessments, robust redress mechanisms, and the principle that a human must always remain in the loop. The lived experiences of migrants must inform design and oversight at every stage, pre-departure, transit, arrival, stay, return, and reintegration, ensuring that innovation promotes inclusion, fairness, and trust, and never replaces compassionate, human-centered judgment. Let us seize this moment to champion a European model of ethical, rights-based, artificial intelligence governance. And I think this text can help us in this, and our committee supports it. Thank you very much, and thanks again to Rapporteur.
Thank you. So the debate is closed. The Committee on Migration, Refugees and Misplaced Persons has presented the draft resolution with the number 16240, to which one amendment has been tabled. The committee has also presented a draft recommendation, document 16240, to which no amendments have been tabled. I remind you, if you want to speak concerning this amendment, the limited time is 30 seconds. First of all, I understand that the chairperson of the committee wished to propose to the Assembly that Amendment 1 to the draft resolution document 16/240, which was unanimously approved by the committee, be declared as definitively approved. Is that so, Mr. Koncharenko?
Yes. Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. If no one objects, I will consider the amendment to be approved. Is there any objection? No. So So we will now proceed to the vote on the draft resolution contained in document 16/240. A simple majority is required. The vote is open. I close the vote. I call for the result to be displayed. So draft resolution in document 16/240 as amended is adopted. We will now proceed to vote on the draft recommendation contained in document 16/240. I remind that we here need a 2/3 majority is required. The vote is open. I close the vote. I call for the result to be displayed. The draft recommendation document 16/240 is adopted. Congratulations. So if everyone allows to have some more time, we can go to the next item of business for this morning. And this is debate on the report titled Sexual Violence Against Men and Boys, which is document 16/250, presented by Mr. Edmunds Chiporitis on behalf of the Committee on Equality and Non-Discrimination. May I ask you all to take your seats as rapporteur and as chair of the committee.
When we've done, I will add, at the end, but if you want, I will. She has to be added as we have time.
Well, I think so.
Yeah, we have plenty of time.
The rapporteur is ready? Yeah? Okay. I remind members that speaking time limit is also 2 minutes. So we will finish with the speakers list at 11:25. And I will, sorry, we will have to finish at 11:25 and we will enter the list of speakers about 11:20 to allow time for the reply and the vote. So I give now the floor to the rapporteur. You have now 7 minutes. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, it is an honor to stand here today to open a debate on a topic that the Council of Europe is addressing for the first time: sexual violence against men and boys. I feel necessary to start with the following. We all know that women and girls are disproportionately affected by sexual violence and rape, which are forms of gender-based violence. The Council of Europe has unique legal tools to prevent and combat it, including the Istanbul Convention. And we need to continue working to combat violence against women without excuses and without being influenced by disinformation propagated by Russia. Without ever intending to reduce the importance of fighting gender-based violence against women, in this report, we look at the sexual violence against men and boys, a human rights violation which remains invisible, seriously underreported, and marked by stigma, shame, and the lack of information for how victims, survivors can get help. For a long time, this issue has remained taboo. something we do not talk about, even in the context we clearly should. Some member states still do not clearly recognize men as potential rape victims within their criminal law. Because of this stigma, there's a big gap between how much we hear about sexual violence against men and boys and how much actually occurs. We must break this silence and take action to improve the lives of men and boys affected by sexual violence so that the survivors can get justice and recover. To break the stigma, we need to be more vocal about it, to name it, to shame it, to support survivors, and to ensure that perpetrators are punished. And we need data. In the report, we highlight the barriers to reporting that exist for men and boys in specific contexts. At home, in religious settings, sport activities, schools, during armed conflict, in migration context, in places of detention. The vast majority of perpetrators of sexual violence against men and boys are men and boys. The root causes are very similar to those of sexual violence against women and girls. Men and boys who perpetrate sexual violence against other men and boys often aim to impose their masculinity and power. As we know, in the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, sexual violence, including against men, has been consistently and deliberately used as a form of torture with an intent to punish and humiliate. Of course, no power can be gained from violating human rights. Moreover, there should be no impunity for these crimes for both individuals and states. Our culture is currently shamed by harmful masculinities, gender roles, and power relations that harm all of us. It is evident that prevention of such violence requires to change this culture, even if it's not easy in the current polarized discourse marked by disinformation about gender equality and human rights. We also need to listen more to the men and boys who are survivors of sexual violence. What do they need the most to recover? How can we best support them? In the committee, we have listened to their demands, and we should build our laws and policies accordingly. Survivors of sexual violence need accessible support services such as helplines, psychosocial support, and counseling that recognize and address the stigma and other specifics that men and boys are subject to. Survivors of sexual violence, especially children, need to be told that it is never their fault, that they did nothing wrong, and that they should not be ashamed. We need targeted actions to encourage boys to disclose sexual violence and abuse. So age-appropriate, comprehensive sexuality education, addressing bodily autonomy, and defining sexual violence around consent is critical in this respect. This resolution also asks the member states to improve their legal and policy frameworks. Many boys and men, and also women, need time to be able to fully recognize and speak about the sexual violence they endured, especially if it has happened in their childhood. This is why I call on member states to consider the abolition of statute of limitation for crimes of sexual violence against children. As politicians, it is our responsibility to prevent and combat sexual violence affecting men and boys, to ensure that their rights are fully protected and respected, to make sure that they can report these crimes and receive support while the perpetrators are punished. We must take action in all of these fields. I hope that my report will pave the way for further engagement and action of our Assembly to eliminate sexual violence against men and boys in all their diversity and everywhere where it takes place. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Then I call on behalf of the EPP, Mr. Bricot.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Les violences sexuelles, abus sexuels ou viols à l'encontre de n'importe qui, quel que soit le genre, sont des abominations et encore plus lorsqu'elles sont exercées sur des enfants. Néanmoins, comme le souligne le rapport, lorsqu'il s'agit de violences sexuelles contre des hommes, la plupart de nos sociétés ont encore de forts tabous et la plupart des victimes considèrent encore qu'être victime de ce genre de violence, d'abus ou de viol est une faiblesse ou l'expression d'une faiblesse. Alors évidemment, tout ce que propose ce rapport est excellent et je le supporterai sans réserve, nous le supporterons sans réserve, mais j'ajouterai, nous devrions aussi travailler auprès de nos sociétés pour faire tomber les stéréotypes et que les hommes victimes ne pensent pas être en état de faiblesse, mais au contraire, ceux qui témoignent en état de force. Donc j'invite tout le monde aussi à travailler dans nos sociétés respectives, faire tomber les stéréotypes. Une victime reste une victime, quel que soit son genre. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Maintenant, je donne, give the floor to Sir Job on behalf of the ECPA. You have 2 minutes.
As a member of the Equalities Committee for this year, and having been to the meeting in Malta where this report was discussed, what concerned me was that this is often the committee seems to engage in tokenism towards males whilst putting all the emphasis on the equality of women. And I don't see any reason why we in this assembly should be differentiating between sexual violence against men and boys as against sexual violence against women and children. And it seems to me quite often we are trying to find an excuse for another report when a gender-neutral report on sexual violence against children and adults would be much more appropriate. But having said that, obviously this is probably a helpful report, although I tried to move an amendment unsuccessfully at the committee suggesting that the reference in, I think, the first paragraph of the recommendation was to say, well, we are against sexual violence in respect of men and boys, but we don't want to say that whilst not re-emphasising that we're against sexual violence against women. But I never see, when we debate sexual violence against women and girls, we never qualify that by saying we are against sexual violence against women and girls, but we feel the need to emphasise that that is not at the expense of sexual violence against men and boys. So I would ask this Assembly and members of the committee to start being more even-handed between men and women in their dealings. And again, when we were in Malta, on issues of health, we found that talking about prostate cancer, the lower life expectancy that men have and so on, that was almost anathema to other members of the committee. So that's my campaign for the next year, to try and treat men, women, girls and boys all equally.
Thank you. Then I go to Ms. Fresco-Rolfo on behalf of the ALDE Group. Vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Lorsqu'un homme ou un garçon est victime de violences sexuelles, trop souvent il devient invisible, comme si son cri se perdait dans un silence construit par nos préjugés. Le rapport présenté par notre collègue Edmund Seprutis a le mérite immense de le rappeler, et le groupe ALDE l'en remercie. Les violences sexuelles ne connaissent pas de genre. Elles frappent à l'aveugle dans toutes les sociétés, dans tous les contextes, en temps de paix comme en temps de guerre. Alors pourquoi ce silence ? Parce que nous avons construit une image de la masculinité où l'homme doit être fort, invincible, inébranlable. Les campagnes officielles, les lois et les dispositifs d'aide ciblent essentiellement les femmes, tandis que les hommes sont fréquemment négligés. Et c'est une femme qui s'est impliquée depuis des années dans la lutte contre la violence à l'égard des femmes qui vous le dit. Comment, sous le poids des clichés, avouer qu'un corps masculin peut être contraint, violenté, humilié ? Ce silence est un gouffre. Il pousse les survivants à croire que ce qui leur est arrivé est impensable, impossible. Certains se murent dans le mutisme pendant des décennies. Et pourtant, cela arrive. Cela arrive aux hommes, cela arrive aux garçons, cela arrive dans nos villes, dans nos familles, dans nos institutions. Cela arrive en temps de paix et cela arrive avec une cruauté sans nom en temps de guerre. Certains hommes sont eux aussi particulièrement ciblés. Je pense ici aux garçons et aux hommes de la communauté LGBT. Leur orientation sexuelle ou leur identité de genre les expose à des violences spécifiques. Mesdames, Messieurs, reconnaître les hommes et les garçons comme victimes possibles, ce n'est pas minimiser les violences faites aux femmes, c'est refuser que la dignité humaine soit conditionnée par le genre et affirmer que les droits humains n'ont pas de sexe. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Madame Fresco-Rolfo. Then I give the floor to Mrs. Kostadinowska-Sochevka. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, allow me to thank the rapporteur for this timely and utmost report. I would like to thank him enormously for tackling a topic that classifies in all of the reports that you can come across as highly unreported and is as equally important as any other violence. The statistics for sexual violence against men and boys is equally worrying as statistics for violence against women. This report gives us an in-depth analysis of the situation regarding the problem and gives on-point directions and recommendations for all parties involved, how to act and how to prevent this abominable fault in the society. Yes, I agree that we need to tell them, we need to tell all victims of sexual violence that it's not their fault, and yes, we need to help them navigate this process. What I would also like to see in this hemicycle to be discussed on is a report regarding educational changes on how we can actually prevent these kinds of processes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Then I'd like to go to the speakers list, and I start with Mrs. Bangoglu. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I would like to warmly thank to Edmunds for his excellent report. As youth reporter in the Equality and Non-Discrimination Committee, I must emphasize that sexual violence and abuse often target children, including boys, and it also takes place online through the internet and social media. As in all our work, including in its youth dimension, we need to look at the circumstances in which men and boys in all diversity are faced with sexual violence. And I welcome the focus in Edmund's report on the main contexts where sexual violence against men and boys takes place. The high number of cases within the circle of trust of boys and young men is alarming. These are not isolated cases, but systematic patterns, yet their stories remain invisible, because the patriarchal norms demand silence. From childhood, boys internalize tough masculinity as silence that prevents reporting and sustains the system that fuels sexual violence. Dear friends, we cannot fight what we do not know, and we know that there has been a lot of silence and attempts to cover up of sexual violence in especially religious settings, in the fields of sports, against men and boys on the move, and against young LGBTI persons. In addition to that, conflict-related sexual violence is increasingly documented, including as a weapon of war against Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. And as a young voice in this assembly, I call on all of us to help victims and survivors to report these human rights violations, to get assistance and support to recover, and to ensure that perpetrators of sexual violence get punished, regardless of how long the victims need to be able to speak up about it. Above all, victims and survivors must be listened to and believed. They ask for support, not blame. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I go to Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen's absent. Then I go to the next one. Monsieur Cottier, vous avez la parole. 2 minutes. Vous devez installer la badge.
Ma faute, Monsieur le Président.
Pas de souci, c'est vendredi matin. 2 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et merci au rapporteur pour ce rapport qui est utile. Je dois dire que je me suis posé la même question que notre collègue Christopher Chope quand j'ai vu ce rapport. Au fond, on peut se poser la question, est-ce qu'il est utile d'avoir un rapport spécifique pour les attaques sexuelles, les agressions contre les garçons et les hommes? Et la réponse, à mon sens, est oui. Non pas parce qu'ils ont des droits différents, les droits humains sont les mêmes droits pour tous, parce qu'on est une personne humaine et pas parce qu'on est membre d'une communauté spécifique ou d'un groupe spécifique, mais les problématiques sont différentes et peuvent devoir être abordées par d'autres regards ou par d'autres axes. Et c'est en cela que le rapport apporte quelque chose d'utile et de complémentaire aux autres rapports que cette Assemblée a fait sur les violences sexuelles en général ou sur les violences sexuelles faites aux femmes et aux filles. Parce que, et le rapporteur l'a dit très clairement aussi dans son intervention tout à l'heure, une certaine conception ou perception de la masculinité peut conduire à des problèmes spécifiques, à la fois dans l'angle de l'agression ou dans la manière dont des agressions sont reproduites et dans la façon dont les victimes elles-mêmes osent ou n'osent pas expliquer ce qui s'est passé et dans la manière dont la société peut les appuyer. Et par conséquent, le fait d'avoir cet angle spécifique, de demander des formations et une sensibilisation spécifique, notamment des autorités ou des autorités judiciaires, de police, de justice et autres, comme le fait le rapport, est quelque chose qui est utile et qui est complémentaire aux autres rapports qui ont été faits par cette Assemblée. J'aimerais remercier le rapporteur parce qu'il le fait avec beaucoup de précision et avec beaucoup de sensibilité, parce qu'il ne faut pas oublier cette catégorie spécifique de victimes. Elle n'a pas des droits particuliers, mais elle a un droit spécifique à être traitée pour ce qu'elle est, avec ses problématiques particulières, et c'est exactement ce que propose le rapport, et je le soutiendrai sans réserve. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur Cotier. Then I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Prammer. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, sexual violence against men and boys has been hidden for far too long, and therefore, Sir Job, it is very necessary to focus on this topic and on these victims in this report. Too many survivors remain unheard, silenced not only by stigma and fear, but also by stereotypes that tell them that they cannot speak or that no one will listen. One of the key barriers is outdated ideas of masculinity, the belief that a real man cannot be a victim or that strength protects you from abuse. That prevents survivors from coming forward. It prevents families from recognizing what has happened. It prevents police, prosecutors, and judges from treating them with the seriousness they deserve. This is not only about individual trauma, it is structural failure. If our societies cling to rigid notions of masculinity, then our systems of justice, of support, and of prevention are built on sand. Survivors are left unprotected, crimes unpunished, and worst of all, perpetrators emboldened. I urge Member States to fund specialized support services for male victims, to train law enforcement and judiciary, and to invest in education that dismantles toxic stereotypes. Colleagues, every survivor who dares to speak deserves to know that we will speak for them too. I will do so in my parliament, and I hope you will do so in yours, until no voice is left unheard. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Ms. Prammer. Then I give the floor to Mrs. Larissa Bilzir. You have 2 minutes.
Mr. President, dear colleagues, today we are considering an important report prepared by Mr. Cheporitis, which for the first time in this hemicycle systematically addresses sexual violence against men and boys, a subject hidden for decades from public attention. The resolution urges us to abolish status of limitation for crimes against children, adopt a gender-neutral definition of rape, provide specialized support services for victims. In Ukraine, the issue takes the most horrific dimension. Russia has turned sexual violence into a weapon of war. The United Nations has documented cases when Ukrainian prisoners of war were forced to undress, beaten, and tortured with electric shocks for their genitals. The ICI reported sexualized torture. Amnesty International confirmed the video from Privilya showing Russian soldiers castrating and killing the Ukrainian prisoner of war. The Center for European Policy Analysis has reported that nearly 2/3 of liberated Ukrainian Poles suffered sexual violence in Russian captivity. In Ukraine, many criminal proceedings have been opened regarding sexual mutilation of prisoners of war. The ECHR recognized that Russia systematically uses sexual violence as a method of torture and humiliation. We must speak plainly. castration, genital mutilation, and forced sterilization be the sign of genocide, as defined in Article 2 of the UN Convention on the Prevention of Genocide, causing serious physical or mental harm. These are acts intended to prevent births within the national group. This is precisely what we see in actions of terrorist state Russia against spouse. This is not only torture, it is embedding of genocidal practices of war. Dear colleague, by adopting this resolution, we send a clear message. Sexual violence against men and boys will no longer remain a silent crime. We have to make everything so victims receive proper protection and support. Thank you.
Thank you. So we conclude the list of speakers, and I call Mr. Tsipridis, our rapporteur, to reply, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone who made a comment supporting many of the points addressed also broader in the report. There's actually a lot of extra suggestions I didn't take time to fully uncover, including creating these campaigns to break the silence and normalize conversation about the violence against men and boys. There was also a good case for gathering more information and more data, because of course in this report we had a very broad look, while in many cases the details could be developed if we had more data. I also wanted to engage in the debate that we already had among the speakers about should we have more gender-neutral reports, as was suggested by Sir Chope. I think many points were already made, but generally if we ignore the role of gender in protecting human rights that of course are universal, then we also ignore the aspects how these human rights are violated in the society, where often the gender, of course, plays a lot of role. In the case of women, it is in ignoring the need for consent and therefore contributing to sexual violence against women. In the case of men, as is stressed in the report and as is actually stressed a lot in this debate, the gender roles are, of course, contributing to this silence, to this shame, to this feeling of losing your masculinity if you talk about the crimes that were committed against you. And in this report, we actually stress a lot the need to take away the shame, to say that it is never the fault of men and boys if something like that has happened to them, and put the shame to the perpetrators, not the victims and survivors. So in this context, it is important to not ignore the gender roles and the norms that have the effects on both how these crimes are perpetrated and also in how the victims, survivors feel that they can access justice, and how they feel that they can or can't talk about the crimes that they have experienced. So I would say, of course, there can be reports that don't focus that much on gender dimension and could be looking at all the aspects, but definitely the gender shouldn't be ignored in these contexts. And therefore, it's I think, very good that we have reports that sometimes look specifically to the gender norms that affect these crimes. But I thank everyone for your supportive comments, and let's make sure that these suggestions mentioned in the report are actually achieved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. And does the chairperson of the committee wish to speak? You have also 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear colleagues, as the chair of the Equality and Non-Discrimination Committee, I'm very proud of this first report of our organization on this topic, such as a serious violation of human rights and dignity, as it is to be subjected to sexual violence, needs to be tackled for all victims, women and girls, which we have been addressing for a long time, and we will continue doing so, but also men and boys. We have started to look into the specific situation on men and boys victims of sexual violence, including their circumstances and needs, This work needs to be continued and developed as the rapporteur has called for. I would like to underline that this report was unanimously adopted by the Equality and Non-Discrimination Committee at our meeting held on 11 September 2025 in Malta. I warmly thank our colleague Edmos Chepouritis for his work in the preparation of this report. I also thank all the members who have taken the floor in support of this report, including the IATA rapporteur of our committee, Ms. Haizu Bankoglu. Sexual violence against men and boys takes place in many different places and countries and contexts, often very close to us, while this serious human rights violation continues to remain invisible. As the rapporteur recalls it, men and boys in all their diversity can suffer sexual violence, and measures to prevent and combat it and to protect survivors should be applied without discrimination on any ground, following an intersectional approach. As the draft resolution indicates, we need to tackle all barriers preventing male survivors of sexual violence from reporting, seeking assistance, support, justice, and redress. It is also urgent to tackle systemic weaknesses in organization and institution which leave men and boys vulnerable to sexual violence and expose it to harm. We all know examples of this in our member state. To address a problem, we need to start by talking about it, giving it visibility, discussing its causes, and coming up with solutions to preventing and combating it. The report by our colleague Edmos Chepouritis does exactly this. I urge you to support it and vote in favor of the draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polidori. So the debate is closed now, and we will now proceed to vote on the draft resolution containing document 16-50, to which no amendments have been tabled, so a simple majority is required. The vote is open. We close the vote. I call for the result to be displayed. It's unanimously adopted. Congratulations. So I'd like to start already with the next item of business this morning, and this is a debate on the report titled Ensuring Parliamentary Assembly Members Can Travel Freely to Carry Out Their Work, which is document 16252, and which will be presented by Mr. Vlasenko on behalf of the Committee on Rules, Ethics and Immunities. May I ask the rapporteur and the chair of the committee to take place. You have to everyone is ready? Everyone is ready, so I remind members also that the speaking time will be limited to 2 minutes. Because we want to finish at noon with the speakers list, so that we finish the item at 12:10. So now I call Mr. Vlasenko as rapporteur, and so we have 7 minutes now, and then 3 minutes at the end to reply to the debate. Mr. Vlasenko, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to start with a note that that's maybe quite tricky to discuss the issue of participation of members on Friday. I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, but today I see, as for Friday, a lot of people. Yes, but talking seriously, on one hand, we have a problem of an active participation, which is sure, and which is the part of Petra Bayer's report, also in our committee. And on the other hand, we have several attempts of the national parliaments not to allow the members to participate in that or that way. By the way, you even couldn't imagine in what forms the national parliaments are not allowing their members to participate. So sometimes it is even tricky things. If you will talk about the groups, there are budgetary limitation, organizational limitation, politically motivated limitation, sorry to say that. As in my home country, Ukraine, that's martial law limitations. There are also blacklists like they are done in Azerbaijan, or criminal cases launched against the members, as it is done in Russian Federation against the members of this honored assembly. Also, for the members who are outside the Schengen area, there are additional limitations like visa limitation, like crossing border limitation, and so on and so on and so on. So there are a lot of limitations which do not allow our members to participate actively in this honorable assembly. But I would like to remind to all member states that according to the Charter of the Council of Europe and to the rules of the Parliamentary Assembly, that's an international obligation. International obligation, and the international obligation is not to allow members to participate, but to do their best for the member states to help the members of this honorable assembly to participate in the activities of the assembly. That's one part, let's say, of the report and the resolution. The second part is dealing with the general agreement of privileges and immunities, which grants the members of this assembly an additional immunities, additional to their immunities as the members of the national parliament. There are several articles of GAPI, Article 13, 14, and 15, dealing with an additional immunities which grants the members to participate. And just to clarify this situation, I made a fact-finding mission in Armenia, because one of the examples is in Armenia. The second was in Poland, and you know the situation with the member Romanovsky when we waived the immunity. And I would like to thank the Armenian authorities for the fruitful cooperation, and I hope, really hope, that after that visit and after the adoption of this resolution, the situation within an Armenian member will be improved strongly. Also, I would like to remind that GAPI, the General Agreement of Privileges and Immunities, that's an also international obligation. But it is a pity to say for me as a rapporteur that public servants of many states, including old democracies, new democracies, non-democracies, and so on, are even don't know that such an international treaty exists. So that's why we made several proposals how to deal with that situation, how to improve the situation of knowledge of the existence of this international treaty, and how to explain to the law enforcement of the member states, how to explain to the courts of the member states, how to deal with the immunities, additional immunities of members of the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe. Also, we were dealing with the situation when we clarify the situation in the case who should decide when there are some conflicting obligations of the member of this assembly and his duties as a member of the national parliament. And that's not the leadership of your parliament who should decide. That's not the leadership of political group, that you are the persons who will decide what they should do. Should they go to the activities of this assembly and nobody have the right to limit you in that, or you will stay in your national parliament and vote for the budget, for the cabinet of ministers, for whatever, because we also had an example when the whole delegation was not, I couldn't use the word allowed, but was limited in visiting this assembly because in the national parliament there was a voting for cabinet of ministers or for budget or for whatever. Also, it's a pity also to say, but we also have examples when the limitation had the politically motivated nature. So sometimes, but obviously it is dealing with the oppositional deputies when the governmental part of the majority of the national parliament is trying to limit the oppositional deputy to participate in activities of this assembly. We are also dealing with that in the report and in the resolution. As a result of adoption of this resolution, there will be some changes made to the rules of procedure. Also, we amend the guidelines on the scope of the parliamentary immunities. We clarify a little bit the usage, the implementation of Article 13 of GAPI. So I will resume saying that this resolution on one hand is rather very, very technical, but on the other hand, it is basic because the participation of members, the free participation of members of the national parliaments as the members of this assembly is a core of this organization, because without the participation, this assembly couldn't work at all. So I would like to end with a thanks to the Secretariat, with a thanks to the committee, and will encourage you to vote in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I give the floor to Monsieur Coty on behalf of au nom du groupe politique ALDE. Vous avez la parole. 2 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Vous avez vu, j'ai trouvé le bouton du premier coup. Et merci surtout au rapporteur pour ce rapport qui est important parce qu'il permet à notre Assemblée, ou il va contribuer à ce que notre Assemblée puisse bien fonctionner. Les questions qui viennent d'être soulevées par le rapporteur sont cruciales pour le fonctionnement de cette Assemblée, qui travaille en parallèle des parlements nationaux, et nous sommes tous des parlementaires nationaux et on sait que ça peut poser des difficultés concrètes, qui travaille en parallèle mais qui doit pouvoir fonctionner à plein et qui ne doit pas être limité pour des raisons soit techniques, soit politiques cachées derrière des arguments techniques. Donc nous devons pouvoir assister non seulement à cette Assemblée, mais aux travaux des commissions, des délégations, des réseaux et des missions d'observation électorale, par exemple, des autres formes de travail de cette Assemblée, sans que notre gouvernement national ou notre Parlement national nous en empêche pour de bonnes ou de mauvaises raisons. C'est à nous de décider. Je suis président de mon groupe parlementaire au Parlement national suisse. Je ne suis évidemment pas content quand un des membres de mon groupe manque pour des raisons d'obligation internationale, mais le rapporteur a raison de dire que ce n'est pas à moi en tant que chef de groupe de décider s'il peut ou si elle peut assister, c'est à lui-même en tant qu'élu de fixer ses priorités en fonction des objets qui sont traités et de sa manière de concevoir les priorités parce qu'il ou elle a été directement élu par le peuple et au fond, comme collègue au Parlement, même si je suis le chef du groupe, je ne suis pas son chef sur ces questions-là et je n'ai pas à décider pour lui. Donc ces points-là sont importants et par ailleurs, nos gouvernements ou parlements n'ont pas à limiter la possibilité pour les membres de l'Assemblée d'intervenir dans un autre pays parce que notre système prévoit ses immunités et ses possibilités de travailler. Donc le travail qui a été fait permet de clarifier un certain nombre de choses et merci pour cela, c'est nécessaire. Et je crois que c'est très important aussi ce que propose le rapporteur, qu'il y ait un effort d'information qui soit fait, parce que souvent c'est par manque de connaissances aussi que ces clauses ne sont pas appliquées. Et le fait d'insister sur ce travail me paraît un élément essentiel. Nous soutiendrons pleinement ce rapport du côté du groupe ALDE.
Thank you. Merci, Monsieur Coty. And now I give the floor to Mr. Öztürk on behalf of the UEL. You have 2 minutes.
Much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to thank your reporters for their hard work, especially the Secretary as well. It's a very important topic, ensuring that members of this Assembly can travel freely is a fundamental to the very purpose of our institution. Deprivation of free movement is not an abstract concept. It includes administrative, legal, and judicial restrictions such as detention, house arrest, curfews, the surrender of passports, and travel bans. These measures, whether temporary or indefinite, directly obstruct our capacity to carry out our parliamentary work. Such restrictions are not merely technical obstacles. They are weaken our collective ability to safeguard democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. When a member is prevented from attending sessions, election observations, or missions, the entire Assembly is deprived of their contribution and perspective. One of my colleagues faced a travel ban for nearly a year, a colleague from Turkey, preventing participations in the Assembly's work. This is not acceptable. It sends a chilling message that political or administrative measures can be used to silence elected representatives. We must be clear. Governments have a responsibility to facilitate, not hinder, the work of parliamentarians. Using travel restrictions as a political tool undermines both individual rights and the credibility of our institutions. Colleagues, if we are serious about defending democracy and the rule of law, we must ensure that all our members can exercise their mandate without fear, obstruction, or restriction. Safeguarding freedom of movement
Thank you.
is safeguarding the integrity of this Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will give the floor to Ms. Bayer on behalf of the Socialist Group. 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Politics are made by human beings, and human beings are social beings, and ideas are shaped by exchange, by interaction, and sometimes by very hard debates, of course. For these ideas, visions, we need to come together. We need to travel freely without unnecessary administrative burdens or without any other restrictions to get to visa or anything like that. What we need is resources and no excuses. And indeed, coming together here for a week is expensive, and it needs a lot of technical support, and it needs a lot of our time. And I think it is better because whatever problem we can settle here, whatever conflict can be halted on a table or in a plenary room like that, it is better to ensure lives here. It is better to debate about how to stop wars here, and it is better to think here about how a healthy environment could look like, because what it costs when we have wars, we just see right now in Ukraine, where we have a lot of material and immaterial costs of a war, and suffering, the destruction of visions, the destruction of ideas, and the basis of life. And these costs are in no relation to that, what it costs here of resources, of time, of technical support when we try to hold that. So states must make human encounter possible, must make possible for us, supporter MPs, to fill parliamentary diplomacy with life. And I think that Sergei suggests some very important steps on this way, so thank you very much for this report.
Vielen Dank, Frau Bayer. And then for the next speaker, I go to Mr. Vardanyan on behalf of the EPP. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The military and civilian authorities of members and friendly states are requested to extend all necessary facilities to the bearer of the present card in carrying out his or her duties, to allow him or her to pass without delay or hindrance, and in case of need to accord all necessary lawful assistance and protection. This is the document each of us are getting when we are becoming the members of the Parliamentary Assembly. We are calling it laissez-passer. I'm almost sure that many of you didn't use it at all because it's useless, because at the airport, in the state authorities of the foreign countries, actually, very, very rare people have any information about what's mentioned here. But the basis of this document is an international treaty. And this international treaty is quite necessary for everybody. And when we are speaking about the participation in the meetings and other events of the Parliamentary Assembly, we speak about multi-layer obligation. And this obligation is, first of all, obligation of each and every member of this Assembly. If our members has other priorities, it's better to be very sincere with each other, with themselves, and take into account that we are dealing not with just a club of interest, but we are dealing with one of the most influential and most important European organization in the field of democracy, and here in this hemicycle should be respected. But this is also a message, this report is a message to all the authorities, to all the member states, to follow all the requirements we have established in the GATI. And first of all, this is a message to our national parliaments and national authorities, because we should, first of all, ensure all the protection and all the respect to the members of our national delegations. I would like to congratulate Sergei Vlasenko, the reporters, for this very important and very timely report, which somehow would increase visibility of this organization and maybe also of this card. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vardanyan. Then I go to Mrs. Dumitrescu on behalf of the ECPA. You have 2 minutes. Yes, you can speak. No. No, just wait.
Mr. President, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Vlasenko for taking this important initiative, because the issues addressed are fundamental for protecting the rights of the member of this assembly and preserving trust, independence, and credibility in our institution. We are witnessing systematic violation of parliamentary immunity and create space for unchecked political pressure and political persecution. The main problem is real guarantees are treated either as empty formalities or are deliberately ignored. This challenge falls especially on opposition members, revealing a clear pattern of selective application of immunity protection. It manifests in many ways, including breaches of the presumption of innocence, the consistent shaping of negative public opinion against certain parliamentaries, and the systematic use of legal, financial, and technological tools to obstruct free political activity and silence dissent. If we cannot secure recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of our own members, then we must ask ourselves whether we can truly claim to defend democracy and human rights at all. I therefore urge the Assembly to recognize the systematic violations of immunity are clear manifestation of political pressure, affirm that the use of criminal or civil proceedings as instruments of pressure against parliamentarians is incompatible with the values of the Council of Europe and the principles of democracy. Demand the immediate cessation of all measures restricting the rights and mandates of Assembly members. Ask national parliamentarians for the largest possible presence, member and substitute, because there have been countless cases in multiple countries when parliaments have not approved the travel of Assembly members to plenary or committee meetings, yet they have come at their own expense. Colleague, defending a single mandate means defending the integrity of the entire Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumitrescu. Now I go to the normal speakers list. First one is Mr. Giovannioli. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, President. I will speak Italian. È sempre deprimente e scoraggiante rilevare la necessità di analizzare e porre come soluzioni lo stabilimento di nuove regole alle violazioni di diritti basilari o apparentemente autoevidenti, come quello dei parlamentari di viaggiare liberamente per portare avanti il proprio lavoro. Quello di cui discutiamo oggi non è un diritto umano fondamentale, ma sicuramente lo è per noi parlamentari e dovrebbe essere appunto banale riconoscere e rispettare tale diritto. Ma abbiamo visto appunto i casi polacchi, armeni, quello gigante dell'Azerbaigian, che tra l'altro non è nuovo a questo genere di iniziative. Durante la loro presidenza di turno del Consiglio d'Europa nel 2014, già allora impedirono al capo delegazione francese Rouquet di entrare in Azerbaigian, nonostante appunto fosse anche vicepresidente della nostra Assemblea. Quindi evidentemente questo report ha ragione di esistere e ringrazio il rapporteur Vlasenko per essere entrato in profondità sul tema, non solo per quanto riguarda quindi i provvedimenti limitativi ingiustificati, le blacklist e quindi gli impedimenti a viaggiare dei parlamentari, ma anche preso dall'altro punto di vista, non solo diciamo per colpire i parlamentari in quello che possono fare, ma nel facilitare, questo viene analizzato, facilitare la circolazione e rendere questi diritti che a noi paiono fondamentali più chiari. Quindi un plauso anche a questa iniziativa che tiene conto sia dei diritti che dei doveri. Grazie.
Grazie. Then we go to Ms. Timblom. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Rapporteur Mr. Vlasenko. As I read the report, I felt slightly embarrassed to learn that there were many more travel restrictions introduced by some of our member states over the years than I had thought, whether they were in regard to visas for travel to other countries or in permitting entry into one's own country on the part of an apparently unwanted member, often for unspecified reasons. The rapporteur points out that these restrictions often fly in the face of long-standing agreements, treaties that were respected ever since the founding years of the Council of Europe. Many of these restrictions seem to be individually targeted and nominative. And this may hamper the work of a visiting rapporteur sent by a committee or the whole assembly in order to study a certain event, such as an election in a country, or to describe in an assembly report the situation of a likely evolution in a given region in a member state. As a consequence, an underinformed rapporteur becomes an underinformed assembly, to which often comes a reputation for inner strife in the Council of Europe as a whole. In conclusion, we should use this report to pressure our own parliaments and governments to live up to the standards of their parliamentary forebears when it comes to travel required for their work on behalf of us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Now it's Bisera Konstantinovska-Stojevska. Bisera.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the rapporteur for this wonderful report that I'll make sure that my Parliamentary Assembly receives it. North Macedonia celebrates 30 years of full membership in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and this is the first time that North Macedonia is mentioned in this case, as in this report, as, I would say, problem country. We've been in those 30 years through wars, we've been through COVID, and it has never been the case for a member of the delegation to be prevented from traveling. I would hate to say that this mandate, the Parliamentary Assembly and the parliamentarians in the delegation of North Macedonia, is having troubles in participating and has had troubles in participating in the Parliamentary Assembly, decisions being made of who can participate in the main sittings, in the committees, in the subcommittees based on unknown basis, nor financial, nor any reasonable doubts. We have head of delegation who makes decisions on behalf of the whole delegation and not notifying the head of delegation. And the last and the most interesting example was that when official documents from the Assembly regards our travelings were published on Facebook, and the President of the Assembly did not want to put an official investigation on how that happened. So we as parliamentarians are quite aware of the obligations that we have, of the notification that we give, of the values that we have to share. So I hope that this report will help my Assembly in improving the work of the members of the delegation of North Macedonia to the Parliamentary Assembly here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bisera. Hannes German is next.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank the Commission for the draft resolution. The document contributes significantly to clarifying important provisions for the proper performance of the tasks and mandates of the Council of States. In this context, a member of our delegation was refused recently entry to a certain country. Given that such unpleasant incidents occur time and again, there is a clear need for action. I consider the amendments to Rule 73 and the rules of procedure and the guidelines on the scope of parliamentary immunity of PACE members listed in point 7 to be particularly important. Specifically, this concerns the clarification of the type of travel and tasks for which members are protected by parliamentary immunity, or rather should be protected. Equally important, on the other hand, is the clarification of travel restrictions imposed as a result of criminal investigations, which would have a negative impact on the performance of duties. Ultimately, it is a matter of clarifying the practical steps that need to be taken by national parliaments and by judicial, investigative and law enforcement authorities. Unfortunately, national governments repeatedly fail to adequately respect the immunity of our members. This, in turn, compromises the quality of the work performed not only by individual members, but by the entire mission. I therefore welcome the fact that our Bureau will in future be able to intervene more forcefully on behalf of the Assembly of the Council of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannes. Haik Mian.
Honorable Chair, dear colleagues, I want to thank Rapporteur for addressing this important issue and for mentioning the case of member of our delegation, Mr. Almen Gevorkian. Travel restrictions for PACE members imposed by the member states are unacceptable. This goes against the very nature of our institution. But how we got here? I will try to answer this question. We got here because at some point, the guardians of democracy, international institutions like PACE, fell asleep or pretended to do so. And now we shouldn't just focus on travel restrictions of PACE members. It would be too selfish. We should go beyond. As I mentioned to the rapporteur during our meeting in Yerevan, an MP from our faction, Mr. Taron Markarian, and many other oppositional MPs in my country are not allowed to fulfill their duties because of politically motivated travel bans. They must apply to the judge or investigator for a permission to go abroad and represent their country, the job they were elected for by the people. And those permissions are not always granted. But they are relatively lucky ones, because our colleagues, oppositional MP Artur Sargsyan, David Galestian, Archbishops Bagrat Galestian and Michaela Japahian, philanthropist Samuel Karapetyan, and almost 30 other political prisoners are under arrest in my country. So, we should fight the cause, not the symptom. Because the three core values of Council of Europe are human rights, democracy, and rule of law, not geopolitical interests or authoritarianism. Thank you.
So, dear Haik, I need to answer to what you have said. You used the characterization about the assembly that was sleeping or pretend to sleep. It is an unacceptable characterization. And it is unacceptable because not only during my presidency, but during my predecessor presidency, whenever, in all cases, a parliamentarian was banned or his application was rejected by his parliament to travel anywhere, the Council of Europe or committees of the Council of Europe were gathering, the speakers of the parliaments received a complaint letter. So there's not even one case that one can raise in this hemicycle that the speakers of this parliament didn't react in cases like the one that you mentioned. So I would like to rethink of what we have said. I'm going now to Bernadetta Coma.
Monsieur le Président, chers collègues, ce rapport rappelle à juste titre que la liberté de circulation est essentielle au bon fonctionnement et à l'intégrité démocratique de notre Assemblée. Elle permet aux parlementaires de remplir pleinement leur mandat, de participer au débat et de représenter efficacement leurs concitoyens. Au-delà de sa portée pratique, la liberté de circulation est consacrée juridiquement par l'accord général sur les privilèges et immunités du Conseil de l'Europe de 1949 ainsi que par son protocole additionnel de 1952. Elle est donc un outil fondamental de coopération interparlementaire et de dialogue entre États membres. En fait, le rapport identifie clairement les obstacles qui persistent de nos jours. À ce titre, permettez-moi d'apporter une perspective particulière, celle des petits États comme l'Andorre mentionnée dans le rapport. Je tiens à souligner que le Parlement andorran a toujours facilité la mobilité de ses membres, notamment pour les réunions internationales. Cependant, notre réalité institutionnelle implique que nos parlementaires doivent assumer simultanément leurs responsabilités nationales, leur activité professionnelle et leurs engagements internationaux dans un contexte de ressources humaines et budgétaires nécessairement limitées. Cette situation, propre aux petits États, peut affecter la régularité de notre présence, notamment en dehors des sessions plénières. Cela dit, nous travaillons pour améliorer cette situation et rendre notre contribution au niveau international plus efficace. J'ai également pris connaissance, avec beaucoup d'intérêt, du passage du rapport sur les listes noires comme celle dressée par l'Azerbaïdjan. De telles mesures me semblent porter atteinte à la liberté de conscience des parlementaires et aux principes du Conseil de l'Europe. Garantir la liberté de déplacement, c'est assurer la pleine participation de tous les membres de cette Assemblée et donc renforcer sa légitimité. Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you, Bernadetta. Beatrice Fresco-Orfo, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président, nous abordons un sujet crucial pour nos démocraties et pour le respect des engagements pris envers nos citoyens. En effet, la liberté de déplacement des parlementaires à l'international est non seulement un droit fondamental, mais elle est également indispensable à l'accomplissement des missions législatives et de représentation qui incombent aux membres de nos institutions. Participer à des conférences, des assemblées, des forums internationaux nous permettent de confronter nos idées et de débattre de grands enjeux globaux, mais aussi promouvoir les intérêts de nos pays. La diplomatie parlementaire est essentielle dans le renforcement des liens bilatéraux et multilatéraux et contribue à développer des partenariats solides. D'ailleurs, grâce à l'observation et à la compréhension de meilleures pratiques législatives et politiques publiques, nous pouvons améliorer nos propres systèmes. Or, force est de constater que de nombreux collègues voient aujourd'hui leur liberté entravée. Ces restrictions, justifiées par des raisons financières, sont bien souvent motivées par des considérations politiques visant à réduire au silence certaines voix ou à freiner leur participation internationale. Ou encore, en représailles à un vote tenu dans cet hémicycle démocratique, je rappelle, 77 membres de notre Assemblée se voient interdire l'accès en Azerbaïdjan. Face à de telles dérives, il est de notre devoir de réaffirmer que la liberté de déplacement des parlementaires n'est pas une option, mais une condition indispensable au bon fonctionnement de nos démocraties et de notre institution. Pour garantir cette liberté essentielle, notre rapporteur nous propose plusieurs mesures que je trouve très pertinentes. Il nous faut donc travailler ensemble pour créer un environnement où chaque parlementaire peut exercer son mandat sans crainte de représailles et de restrictions. Protégeons cette liberté, car la liberté de déplacement des parlementaires est une condition sine qua non pour l'efficacité de nos démocraties et garantir que les voix de nos peuples soient entendues sur la scène internationale. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Beatrice. And the last speaker in my list is Oleksiy Goncharenko. Oleksiy.
Thank you, President. First of all, thanks to Rapporteur and the committee for big job done. Unfortunately, this report is partly built on my case, my personal case, when during 2023, number of times I was not allowed to cross the border of Ukraine to participate in the events of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. This was done by the government as a kind of leverage on me as an opposition politician, which is absolutely unacceptable. And I want to thank President and Secretary General that always you reacted. And because of your strong reaction and preparation of this report, this practice was stopped. And last 2 years, I can fully work as a member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe without restrictions, but it shouldn't be avoided in future. But we are here, and this is even more important, we are here in this assembly not to protect rights of MPs. We're here to protect human rights. We're here to protect democracy and rule of law in general. And unfortunately, I need to tell you, millions of people in Ukraine today are deprived of their right to freely cross the border. It is explained and justified by the war. But unfortunately, we see that those who wanted to run away from their duty to protect the country did it through corruption. And now it creates just distrust in Ukrainian society. And this is the most dangerous, because closed border, they don't protect the front line, but they protect corruption and then create a distrust inside society, which is very dangerous, especially in time of war. In Ukrainian parliament, there is my bill about letting all people to fully and freely cross the border when they need to do this. We need to do this in Ukraine as soon as possible, because millions of people have all the right to move, to cross the border, and this will just make Ukraine stronger. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you and for your kind words. Of course, I disagree a bit with you. You said we are not here to protect the MPs, but the human rights. I believe that even politicians are human beings. Thank you so much. Thank you all. That concludes the list of speakers. I call now Sergei Vlasenko, rapporteur, to reply. Sergei, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, President. Because there were no questions, it will be easy to speak. And the first thing I would like to start with is to thank once more the Secretariat for their brilliant job, the committee for their brilliant job, the President and the Bureau who put that issue on Friday as the last one. So that is also very good. We debated it freely and openly. And by the way, I would like to support the President in his reaction on our Armenian colleagues' intervention. And by the way, thanks all the colleagues for their intervention. I could witness when we had a fact-finding mission to Armenia, I could witness that the position of the President of the Assembly was of huge importance in solving the situation, because without this intervention of the President, it couldn't be possible to solve the situation. And the situation was solved. And our fellow colleague was present here, and he had the possibility to participate. So, and by the way, by the changes of rules, we give to the President a little bit more discretion in this area, which will be very helpful as for me. Also, I would like to address all the national delegations, and maybe I will kindly ask the President if this resolution will be voted, just to inform the national parliaments about these decisions, and focus their attention also to the General Agreement of Privileges and Immunities, which is I will say it once more, that is an international treaty which is obligatory to the members. So maybe it will help. As we see, the report is working because Goncharenko is with us for 2 years with no problems, which is also good. And I would like also to say, as Mr. Giovannioli said, that all this should be self-evident. Yes, I agree with you, but it isn't. But that's why this report appeared, and that's why we are discussing that. Our Mr. German from Switzerland, he mentioned the situation with one of the members of the Swiss delegation. I know that problem, and that problem was created because the Azerbaijan adopted the blacklist of 77 members of this assembly, including the president of the assembly, who are not allowed to visit Azerbaijan, which is absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. The same unacceptable is the launching of the criminal cases by Russian authorities against the concrete members of this assembly. We understand that they are politically motivated. So I will also just put your small attention about the status of our laissez-passer, and I will kindly ask the President to inform the Member States about the status of laissez-passer to be used more precisely, especially in France and Germany. And my last reaction will be to Petra Bayer's statement saying that politicians are not only social beings. I agree with that. They are also EPP beings, ALDE beings, ACPA beings, and United Left beings. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergei, for your kind words. Christophe, would you like to take the floor for 3 minutes as the Vice Chairperson of the committee? Mr. Bricco.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais m'associer à Monsieur Vlasenko dans mes remerciements au Secrétariat général et aux équipes du Secrétariat général qui, particulièrement sur ces travaux, sont d'un soutien absolument crucial. Mais surtout, j'aimerais remercier les membres de la Commission du règlement qui font un travail discret, pas forcément sur lequel il y a beaucoup de capital politique à gagner et qui pourtant a pour unique vocation d'améliorer la qualité de nos travaux dans cette Assemblée et de s'assurer qu'ils se conduisent avec éthique et déontologie. C'est le sujet principal de la Commission. Donc, merci à tous, de tous les groupes politiques, pour l'ensemble des travaux. Enfin, pour revenir au sujet, et je n'utiliserai pas l'intégralité du temps qui m'est imparti, il y a une chose intéressante. Une organisation internationale, c'est une créature un peu étrange. Dans nos parlements nationaux, tous, nous garantissons une immunité sur l'exercice de la liberté d'expression. Nous considérons qu'un parlementaire doit être libre de s'exprimer pour pouvoir politiquement agir. Eh bien, dans une organisation internationale, la liberté de circulation est aussi importante que la liberté d'expression. Les deux sont des piliers. Et enfin, je m'associerai à M. Vlasenko en rappelant aux États membres que l'accord sur les privilèges et immunités du Conseil de l'Europe et l'ensemble de ces protocoles additionnels, d'ailleurs, puisqu'il y en a un certain nombre, est un texte, un accord international absolument statutaire et contraignant sur lequel ils doivent se conformer, ainsi que, évidemment, les statuts du Conseil lui-même. Donc, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Vlasenko, pour cet important rapport. Il y a encore assez de monde pour ces travaux. Et je remercie aussi tous les collègues qui sont intervenus, qui ont souligné l'importance de ces travaux. Donc, merci beaucoup et passons au vote.
Thank you, Christophe. Dear colleagues, the debate is closed. The Committee on Rules, Ethics and Immunities has presented a draft resolution. The document is under the number 16252, to which 4 amendments have been tabled. They will be taken in the order in which they appear in the compendium. I remind you that speeches on amendments are limited to 30 seconds. I understand that the Vice Chairperson of the Committee wishes to propose to the Assembly that Amendments 1, 2 and 4 to the draft resolution, which were unanimously approved by the Committee, be declared as definitely approved. Is that so, Christophe? Yes, thank you. If no objects, I will consider the amendments to be approved. Is there any objection? No? Amendments are approved. I understand that the Vice Chairperson of the Committee wishes to propose to the Assembly that Amendment 3 to the draft resolution, which was rejected by the Committee with a 2/3 majority, be declared as definitely rejected. Is that so, Christophe? Yes, thank you. If no objects, I will consider the amendment to be rejected. Any objection? No, the amendment to be rejected. We will now proceed to vote on the draft resolution contained in document 16252 as amended. A simple majority is required. The vote is open. So the vote is closed. I call for the result to be displayed. The draft resolution in document 1625 as amended is unanimously adopted. Thank you so much for your excellent work. Now, we come to the free debate. I remind members that this debate is for topics not already on the agenda agreed by the Assembly. Speaking time will be limited to 2 minutes. Speakers should start by identifying the topic you wish to raise. And according to the list that I have here, on behalf of the political groups, I have Gerardo Giovagnoli from the Socialists, Greens and Democrats. Gerardo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will talk about the election in Moldova. Last weekend, there are of crucial importance within the broader context of the country's path towards the European Union accession, which was already the subject of a referendum last year. Reflecting the high stakes, there were attempts funded with millions of euros to influence the vote in favor of pro-Russian candidates through practices such as direct vote buying, propaganda, and anti-European disinformation. These were compounded by more sophisticated and insidious threats orchestrated via social networks and artificial intelligence tools, prompting Moldovan authorities to establish specialized agencies to counter such phenomena. The political climate was highly polarized. Nonetheless, the elections were conducted in a calm and orderly manner. Polling stations demonstrated a high level of organization with competent and well-prepared commissions, almost entirely composed of women, who managed operations with great professionalism. The outcome exceeded expectation for the ruling party PAS, which secured over 50% of the vote, clearly confirming the electorate's desire to continue along the country's European path. Particularly noteworthy was the increase in voter turnout, far from guaranteed in the current climate, indicating widespread awareness of the importance of the vote. However, several critical issues must be acknowledged. PAS majority was made possible largely thanks to the diaspora vote, which supported the party at significantly higher rates than domestic voters. There was a sharp reduction in polling stations in Transnistria region, preventing many citizens from crossing the border to vote. And the late decision to invalidate the candidacy of two parties led to disputes over the result. In conclusion, while recognizing the historic significance of this election and the role in consolidating Moldova's democratic path in alignment with the values of the Council of Europe, it is essential that the ruling party take into account the views of the opposition and the citizens who supported it. In a country marked by deep internal tension and external threats, fostering unity and shared purpose is vital to ensure that the process of European integration continues in a stable and irreversible manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerardo. On behalf of the European Conservatives, Patriots and Affiliates, Oleksiy Goncharenko. Oleksiy, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear Chairman. And using this opportunity of free debate, I would like to tell you about the work of the biggest in Ukraine network of educational cultural centers, which is called Goncharenko Centers. We have 43 centers in the whole country, 43, including center 20 kilometers from Russian border. Unfortunately, some of our centers in Donbas area, we needed to stop their operation because of Russian aggression. One our center is occupied in Kherson region in Oleshki, but others, 43 centers, are working every day, 24/7, to support people, to give education and culture, to support IDPs. And today I would like to thank all our partners who are helping us. It's Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ. It's European Union, Hepatica Foundation Sweden, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Germany, Jarl Hjalmarsson Foundation Sweden, International Renaissance Foundation, University of Pennsylvania, Cisco Networking Academy, Shih-Chin University Taiwan, National Open University of Taiwan, Lord Ashcroft and his foundation, American Enterprise Institute, Atlantic Council, Razum for Ukraine, International Democracy Union, International Republican Institute, Danube Institute. During these years which our network works, we have more than 2 million students, 2,400,000 visited our centers. We have now more than 500 active teachers. We have more than 152,000 events which happened in our network. And that is a great job which is done every day in Ukraine, despite the war, despite the shelling and bombs falling on our heads, because we believe in education, we believe in culture, we believe in Ukraine, and we believe in Europe. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Oleksiy. You're absolutely right. Education is the pillar for democracy. That's why I want to remind you, dear colleagues, that I have announced at the beginning of this session that I have sent a letter after consulting the Bureau to the speakers of your parliaments. And those who have good relations with the speakers, please remind them that there is a proposal on behalf of the Assembly to initiate once a year, 1 hour for the Council of Europe at school, so children will learn once a year what the Council of Europe stands for. Now I give the floor to Mike Reeder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear colleagues, I'm going to talk today about access to food and food security. And as the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Food and Drink, this is a topic that's very close to my heart. The Council of Europe exists to uphold shared values, the protection of rights, the defence of democracy, and setting standards that safeguard people's dignity. And those standards should extend to the right to access for safe food, fairness of working conditions, and the resilience of the systems that sustain our communities. That's why I want to raise particularly the forthcoming UK-EU agreement on sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the SPS agreement. On the surface, it may just look like a technical negotiation, but in reality, it's an opportunity to embed the principles of this Council into how trade is delivered by ensuring that cooperation between European nations strengthens protections rather than weakens them, and that no country is forced into a race to the bottom on quality or safety. Europe is the UK's closest trading partner, and under Labour, Britain will not rejoin the single market or the customs union, but we are pursuing pragmatic alignment where it cuts red tape, strengthens supply chains, and supports our shared climate and security goals. Closer cooperation will reduce bills for my constituents, it will protect consumers and give businesses the certainty they need. So the SPS agreement should set the highest possible standards for food safety, for animal welfare, and for plant health. It can simplify trade, open markets that give farmers and producers and consumers the stability that they deserve. And above all, it can show how Europe can work together to turn promises into delivery. It's our chance to prove that Britain and Europe can work together for fairness, protection, and mutual respect, and demonstrate that cooperation, not division, is the path to prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Ronan Mullen is next. Ronan.
Thank you, Chair. I want to address yesterday's attack in Manchester. Our thoughts must all be with the victims of this dreadful attack on Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. This Assembly works to promote democracy, human rights and the rule of law, but yesterday's events, on top of the many sorrows and outrages that we've been thinking about and discussing this week, must remind us that something more is needed. We must work for fraternity. We must pay close attention to the demographic evolution of our societies, yes, because the decisions we make today will determine the state of our societies tomorrow, but we can't just pull up the drawbridge of our own countries and pretend that all will be well, because we have to be protagonists for peace and justice in our own lives, but also at home and abroad. And where there's no vision, the people perish, the book of Proverbs reminds us. Let's consider whether the emptiness and alienation in so many hearts that turns people to violence and extremism has its roots in the way that we have shaped our own societies and our own attitudes. Can we talk about human rights if we refuse to be accountable to a higher justice, to an ultimate primacy of love, which is surely the prerequisite for an authentic narrative around human dignity and human rights? And don't we attack that very vision when we don't just tolerate but champion the destruction of our own fellow human beings at the very beginnings of their lives? Aren't we corrupting our own hearts and minds and leading impressionable people to think that in the end everything is relative and that violence may sometimes be justified? But to all those tempted to resort to violence in the face of perceived injustice, let's recall the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who said that an eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. And let's change our hearts and make every day a day of atonement, so that may the Lord change the hearts of evildoers, grant his forgiveness, but grant us the ability to forgive others and to seek their good as well as our own.
Thank you, dear Ronan, and we fully agree with you. We must defeat hate. Thank you for mentioning it. It is now Malte Kaufmann.
Herr Präsident, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, vielen Dank für das Wort. Ich möchte heute zwei Themen ansprechen. Das eine Thema ist zunehmende Einschränkung des passiven Wahlrechts in den Mitgliedsländern. Das andere Thema ist Einschränkung der freien Meinungsäußerung durch linksradikale Antifa-Organisationen. Zum ersten Thema. Wir müssen leider feststellen, dass mehr und mehr es vorkommt, dass Kandidaten gar nicht zugelassen werden zu Wahlen. Wir hatten das in Deutschland jetzt mehrfach bei Kommunalwahlen, zuletzt in Ludwigshafen, wo ein AfD-Kandidat, Joachim Paul, nicht zugelassen wurde zu der Oberbürgermeisterwahl. Er durfte gar nicht kandidieren. Es gab eine Wahlkommission von 7 oder 8 Mitgliedern der etablierten Parteien, die ihn nicht aufgrund eines richterlichen Beschlusses, sondern aufgrund einer Expertise, die von einem SPD-geführten Innenministerium im Bundesland in Rheinland-Pfalz kam, ausgeschlossen haben. Und da waren abstruse Sachen drin, wie zum Beispiel, dass man herausgefunden hat, dass er einmal positiv über Tolkien gesprochen habe und deswegen nationalistisch gesinnt sein soll. Meine Damen und Herren, das dürfen wir nicht zulassen. Wir müssen die Mitgliedsländer auffordern, zu dem passiven Wahlrecht zu stehen und es möglich zu machen, dass Kandidaten aller Couleur auch bei Wahlen antreten können. Das zweite Thema, das mir sehr wichtig ist, ist das Thema, dass zunehmend Antifa-Gruppierungen Gewalt ausüben, Gaststätten unter Druck setzen, die zum Beispiel in Deutschland AfD-Dialoge, Bürgerdialoge führen wollen und sogar körperlich aggressiv werden und gewalttätig werden. Mir ist es selber schon passiert, dass ich bei einer Kundgebung angegriffen wurde und auf den Kopf geschlagen wurde von so einer Antifa-Bewegung. Meine Damen und Herren, in den USA wurde sie jetzt als Terrororganisation klassifiziert und wir sollten in Europa nachziehen. Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Thank you, Malte. I just want to remind that in this hemicycle we have the honor to receive more than 60 speakers of parliaments, and the most important issue that we have to discuss is hate speech and attacks against politicians. Thank you for mentioning it. Now it is Katia Polidori. Katia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will continue in Italian. In un periodo così difficile e triste di guerra e tanto complicata per la diplomazia di tutto il mondo, io voglio dare una bella notizia, che un primo gruppo di 39 studenti e ricercatori è giunto in Italia 2 giorni fa da Gaza con 2 voli speciali della Guardia di Finanza grazie alla collaborazione tra il Ministero degli Esteri italiano, il Ministero della Ricerca e la Conferenza dei Rettori, che hanno aperto i corridoi universitari per permettere ai giovani palestinesi assegnatari di borse di studio di essere accolti. E 2 giorni prima un ultimo gruppo di minori palestinesi è giunto da Gaza con 3 voli umanitari. L'operazione ha coinvolto 15 pazienti insieme a 65 loro accompagnatori. Le operazioni sanitarie hanno finora permesso di ricoverare 196 bambini di Gaza accolti con i loro familiari per un totale di 658 persone. I numeri parlano da soli. L'Italia si conferma così il primo paese occidentale, più degli altri stati europei messi insieme, ad aver organizzato il trasferimento in ospedali specializzati di pazienti provenienti dalla striscia. Inoltre, con la collaborazione decisiva del Ministero della Difesa sono stati realizzati aviolanci per paracadutare direttamente su Gaza circa 100 tonnellate di derrate alimentari. E quindi lasciatemi ringraziare anche in questa importante assemblea del Consiglio d'Europa il Ministro Tajani degli Esteri, il Ministro Bernini dell'Università, il Ministro Crosetto della Difesa e naturalmente il Primo Ministro Giorgia Meloni. Grazie Presidente.
Thank you, Katia. Laszlo Toroskai is here. No, Laszlo is not here. Tony Vaughan. No. Theo Bovens?
No.
No. Albana Boxy? Albana? No.
Yes.
Ah, okay. I used to see you there. That's okay. You have the floor, Albana.
Thank you, Honorable President. I would like to speak on the international reports on Albania. Just days ago, the US State Department published its 2025 report on Albania's business climate. Findings are alarming. Albania remains plagued by systemic corruption, massive influx of illicit funds, especially from drug trafficking, which distort competition and block foreign investment. Corruption in procurement, abusive use of PPP contracts, insecure property rights, and weak judiciary have created an environment where business face pressure from public administration and criminal groups. If you visit Tirana, Vlora, Durrës, Saranda, or even Himara, you will see luxury resorts or high towers replacing historic neighborhoods, theaters, and stadiums. They look nice and modern, but over 40,000 apartments in Tirana are empty. Prices of 3,000, 5,000 or even 10,000 euro per square meter reveal the truth. These towers are not for Albanians. They are vehicles for laundering dirty money. International headlines confirm this. Caras and Caretas in Uruguay recently reported on the collapse of powerful Albanian clan trafficking cocaine from South America to Europe, laundering billions euros through construction and even influencing drug prices. What is alarming is the collusion of government and state institutions with this organized crime, making Albania's problem to a European and beyond problems. And that's why I'm insisting in repeating this very alarming situation. Europe cannot afford to have a safe haven for organized crime without decisive action. Albania risks social unrest, violent clashes between clans, mass immigration and export of insecurity across Europe. Therefore, I call on this Assembly to send a clear and firm message. Corruption, money laundering, media suffocation, electoral manipulation will not tolerate it, and I urge this Assembly to use every instrument available to push Albanian government to fight organized crime and protect democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Albana. Roland Rino Büchel.
Geschätzter Herr Präsident, geschätzte Anwesende, ich werde ein paar Worte sagen zum Vertrauen in die Menschen und zu jemandem, der den Menschen dieses Vertrauen entgegengebracht hat. Es geht darum, das Wohl der Bürger über dasjenige der Politiker zu stellen. Alfred Heer ist nicht mehr unter uns. Das ist ein großer Verlust für den Europarat, für die Freunde der Demokratie, für die Kämpfer gegen die Korruption und für alle von uns, die ihn persönlich gekannt haben. Alfred sprach mit klaren Worten. Er hat nie den einfachen Weg gewählt, sondern denjenigen, welcher ihm der richtige erschien. Hier im Europarat war er über viele Jahre hinweg eine prägende Figur. Unbequem, immer glasklar in seinen Gedanken, immer glasklar in seinen Worten. Er wusste, wovon er sprach, und er wusste immer, weshalb er sprach. Er hat Missstände aufgedeckt, er hat sich nie einschüchtern lassen. Wenn andere geschwiegen haben, hat Alfred gesprochen und vor allem, er hat gehandelt. Alfred hat den Finger in die Wunden gelegt, selbst wenn es unbequem war. Genau deshalb hat man ihm zugehört. Darum hat man mit ihm gekämpft, darum habe ich mit ihm gekämpft. Mit dem Ziel, dass diese Welt ein kleines bisschen besser wird. Nicht für uns Politiker, sondern für die Menschen, die wir vertreten. Speziell für die Jungen, wie zum Beispiel meine 12-jährige Tochter Ilaria, welche jetzt auf der Tribüne sitzt und zuschaut. Der Geist von Alfred hat diesem Rat gut getan. Alfred, an dir war nichts artificial, ganz sicher nicht eine Intelligenz. Danke, Alfred, du fehlst. Ich glaube, du fehlst uns allen.
Dear Roland, you know that we have started this session by commemorating Alfred with a moment of silence. I would like to add a few words to what you have said that moved all of us. The first time I saw Alfred face to face and I told him, I want you to come to my office, he said, what have I done? And when he came to my office, we had a discussion. There was a dispute between Alfred and another parliamentarian. He really understood what I have told him, and he thanked me at the end. I don't want to make a discussion with what to put in public, but it is an honor for me to keep in my WhatsApp talks with Alfred. I have a lot of chat with him. One that he wrote me on the 10th of April after a dispute in this hemicycle. He was sitting somewhere there. He wrote me, though I have addressed to him in a very strict way, Dear Theodoros, you are a good and impartial President, Alfred. So I cherish that he was a man who, even if you didn't agree with him in cases, we don't have to agree in every case, all of us here, he was respectful, and he was devoted, as you said. Then he was about to visit Greece, so we exchanged a lot of messages, where to go, which places to visit with his family, etc. We will miss him. We will miss any voice that gives life to this assembly, no matter which party this voice represents, which ideology, or how loud or soft is being heard. To this book of the Swiss delegation, I wrote that there's a Greek poem. A Greek poet said once that it is when we forget the people that they are really dead. So if we don't forget people, then they are almost around us. Thank you so much for mentioning this for our late colleague Alfred here. And I will give the floor now to Heik Mamikyan. Heik is here? Yeah.
Honorable Chair, dear colleagues, I'm going to speak about Armenian hostages in Baku. Today is the last day of this session, and all of us are anxiously awaiting our return home and the moment we can see our loved ones. I'm sure all of you have texted and called them many times to see how are they doing, because we love them and we care about them. Imagine if you couldn't do so. Unbelievable, huh? But the relatives of the Armenian hostages kept in Azerbaijani prisons are deprived of that opportunity. After the closing of the Red Cross office in Baku, we and the relatives have no clue about the well-being of our compatriots. And we can speak that it's big politics, conflict, international deals, blah, 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 but it's not. It's human lives, human tragedies. There are reports of suicide attempts, hunger strikes among the hostages. It is a shame, but we don't even have the exact number of our brothers who were unlawfully taken hostage by Azerbaijan. Maybe some of them are not alive anymore. So I ask you, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, and my colleagues from member states, please delegate your ambassadors in Baku to visit Armenian hostages kept in Azerbaijani prison. Please act immediately as a proof that humanity is still alive. Don't leave them one-on-one with a dictator. Thank you, and Mr. President, with all due respect, I know of your efforts, and we are extremely thankful for that, but that's what I was talking about. It's fighting symptoms, not the cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Heik. Thank you. And the last in my list is Richard Selessers.
Thank you, Mr. President. My topic is on free speech. Colleagues, we are living in a time when the question of values is critical for the future of our nations. Powerful forces push new agendas, urging us to abandon what we have inherited and forget the truths that built our societies. But values are not negotiable. Faith, truth, family, and tradition are not just relics. They are the foundations without which no society survives. This is why free speech matters. Without the ability to speak openly, values cannot be defended. Silence in the face of falsehood is permission for it to grow. Europe must remain a place where voices are heard, even when they disturb or offend. Yet free expression is narrowing. Some countries still use criminal defamation to silence critics. Others expand hate speech laws so widely that ordinary debate is restricted. In the United Kingdom, the Online Safety Act pressures platforms to delete lawful but controversial speech. Piece by piece, our democratic space is shrinking. And I must speak personally. The recent assassination of Charlie Kirk in the United States struck me deeply. He was not a European, but his death is a brutal warning. When societies grow intolerant of words, violence replaces debate. He once warned, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. The right to speak freely should never be answered with bullets. That is why I'm here. Europe must not only outlaw calls to violence, it must defend the right to shock, to offend, and to disturb. If we abandon that, we abandon the very essence of freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and that is why I have used the famous phrase now of Barack Obama when Kirk was assassinated. Thank you all. The debate is closed. The next item on today's agenda is the continuation of the debate on the progress report of the Bureau at the Standing Committee, document 16257, addendum 3. The Bureau has proposed several references to committees set out in addendum 3. These references must be submitted for ratification by the Assembly in accordance with Rule 26.3. Any objections successfully raised mean those references will be referred back to the Bureau. Are there any objections to the references? No. No objections. The references are approved. I now propose that the other decisions in the progress report be ratified. Are there any objections? No, there are no objections. The progress report is approved. We have now come to the end of our business. I would like to thank all members of the Assembly, particularly rapporteurs and chairs of committees, for their hard work during this part session. I would like to thank the vice presidents who chaired during this part session, namely Bertrand Buix, Bernadetta Coma, Andrei Grifroy, Mogens Jessen, Arusiak Yulhakian, Mia Petra Kumpulanatri, Marko Pavic, Denica Sacheva, Lord Don Tuig. I would also like to thank the staff, technical personnel and interpreters, both permanent and temporary, who have worked hard to make the part session a success. I want once again to congratulate our Secretary General of this Assembly, Dr. Desmina Hadjivasiliou, who was re-elected for a new term of 5 years, unanimously. I want to thank especially two of our colleagues who are still here with us. They are leaving this Assembly. Who knows what will happen in the future, Inget Skau and Stefan Senna. Thank you so much for your contribution, which was unanimously accepted. That was an exceptional contribution in difficult times of issues that this Assembly had to deal with. Dear colleagues, Stefan, it's about you. And Ingrid, thank you so much, Ingrid. So, dear colleagues, the first part of the 2026 session will be held from 26 to 30 January 2026. I declare the fourth of the 2025 session of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe closed. The sitting is closed.